I'd like to show you a tip if you're an iPhone user. Android probably has a similar feature. I've set up a situation here where I have two subjects on this tabletop, the tomatoes in the foreground and the green plant in the background. Be aware, and this is an iPhone 6s, but I think it'll work similarly on other models of the iPhone, and also there could be similar features in Android. If I want to tell the camera what my specific subject should be, in this case, for example, if I want the subject to be the tomatoes, I can tap on the tomatoes by simply tapping on the screen, and you see a yellow square appear around it. It's very prominent at first, and then it tends to fade away. Let me tap on the green bush in the background. Watch for the yellow square. There it is. And you see what looks like a little starburst next to it. Let's go back to the tomatoes. That starburst allows me to control the exposure for the photograph. So watch what happens. Let me go up here. Let me go back to the tomatoes. Now I'm moving my finger up and down on the screen. You'll notice that starburst is moving up and down on a slider. And that allows me to change the exposure. For example, I might like a little bit darker exposure here to get the richness of the red in the tomatoes, okay? And I can do it for whatever the subject is. So if I tap on the green, again, I can move my finger up and down and I'm affecting the exposure. The exposure is of the overall image, understand, but this is a way to control the exposure of the image, which is very, very handy in difficult lighting situations. This is not particularly difficult, but when you encounter those, being able to adjust the exposure is very handy. One more quick thing. Let me tap on the tomatoes again. Watch what happens when I tap and hold on the tomatoes. Notice at the top of the screen, there's a little yellow box and it says AEAF lock. And that's automatic exposure and automatic focus lock. And what that means is I've now told the camera, even if I move the camera around, I don't want you to change the exposure or the focus point based on the setting it for the tomatoes. Now, this is a more advanced feature that photographers use in their more sophisticated cameras. But be aware that these smartphones are getting very, very capable, and some of these professional features are available. What I've done is I've navigated to the settings portion of the iPhone, and right in the middle is the category for the camera app itself. So I'm going to tap on that, and I want to show you a setting that I really appreciate, and that is the third of the way up from the bottom. It's called Grid. I always have that turned on, but you can turn it off and on by simply tapping it, okay? So when it shows green, it's on. Now, let me show you how this works and why it's important in my opinion. I'm going to go to my camera app, and I'm standing over a tabletop, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take a photograph of this magazine cover, okay? So if I hold the camera crooked, the resulting photograph's going to be kind of miserable. So ideally, I try to get the smartphone completely parallel to the surface. I want to really show you the grid, and I'm going to get rid of the magazine for a second. Notice the vertical and horizontal lines running top to bottom, side to side. Those are guides for me later when I'm photographing things, for example, a sunset. I can make sure that I'm lining up the horizon in the sunset to be nice and straight, okay? Now, for purposes of scanning something, when I'm face down with the camera, this doesn't really help if I'm shooting something else, if I'm just looking elsewhere in the house. In the middle, those crosshairs went away. But watch when I go straight down, the camera knows I'm looking straight down, and it gives me those two crosshairs in the middle. Now notice there are two of them. There's a yellow one and a white one. And I can see both of them when I'm not square to the surface. But when I move my smartphone to try to get it nice and square, I can line them up and only the yellow one shows. There it is, right there. Now if I take the picture, I know that photograph is going to be nice and square.